You never expect the answer to a decades-old mystery to fall into someone's lap. But sometimes, the truth doesn't come from tireless detectives or high-tech labs. Sometimes it's a random hiker, a bored teenager, or a twist of fate that cracks a case wide open. Tonight, I'm taking you inside 5 cold cases that haunted families, baffled police, and seemed destined to remain unsolved, until a complete accident changed everything. These are the stories that prove sometimes the universe has its own way of revealing the truth. Imagine this. It's a crisp autumn afternoon. The leaves are turning, the air is sharp, and a father and son are hiking through the woods in rural Oregon. They're not searching for anything, just enjoying the quiet, the crunch of leaves underfoot, the way the sunlight filters through the trees. But then the boy spots something odd poking out from the underbrush. It's not a stick or a rock or a piece of trash. It's a shoe. And inside that shoe is a secret that's been buried for over 20 years. That's how the mystery of Mary Ellen Decker finally came to an end. Mary Ellen was a high school senior who vanished in 1992 after leaving a friend's house. For years, her family clung to hope, posting flyers, calling tip lines, begging for answers. The police followed every lead, but nothing stuck. The case went cold, and Mary Ellen became another face on a missing persons poster, until that accidental discovery in the woods. The shoe led to a shallow grave, and the grave led to closure, heartbreak, and a confession that no one saw coming. But we'll get to that. Before we dive into the details of Mary Ellen's case, let's talk about what makes these accidental discoveries so haunting. It's the randomness, the idea that for years the answer was right there, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to stumble across it. It's a reminder that life is unpredictable, that justice can be delayed but not always denied, and that sometimes the smallest twist of fate can change everything. Case 1. The Lost Girl in the Woods. Mary Ellen Decker was 17, a straight-A student, and the kind of person everyone described as responsible. She had a part-time job at the local library, a close-knit group of friends, and a family who adored her. On the night she disappeared, she'd gone to a friend's house to study for finals. She left around 9:30, promising to call her mom when she got home. She never did. The next morning, her car was found abandoned on a quiet stretch of road. Keys still in the ignition, purse on the passenger seat. There were no signs of a struggle, no fingerprints, no witnesses. The police searched the area, brought in dogs, even drained a nearby pond. Nothing. For years, the case haunted the small town. Rumors swirled, maybe she'd run away, maybe she'd been taken by someone she knew, maybe she'd just vanished into thin air.
But Mary Ellen's family never gave up. Her mother, Linda, became a fixture at every town meeting, every vigil, every press conference. She kept her daughter's room exactly as it was, right down to the posters on the wall and the stack of library books on the nightstand. "I just want to know what happened," she told reporters year after year. "I just want to bring her home." It wasn't until 2014, 22 years after Mary Ellen disappeared, that the truth finally surfaced. The father and son who found her shoe weren't looking for anything. They were just hiking, following a deer trail that wound through the woods behind their house. The boy, 12 years old and curious, spotted something half buried in the dirt. He called his dad over, and together they unearthed a faded sneaker, still laced, still holding its shape after all those years. Inside the shoe was a small bone. The father, a former EMT, recognized it immediately as human. He called the police, who cordoned off the area and began a painstaking search. Over the next week, they uncovered more remains, along with scraps of clothing and a necklace that Mary Ellen's mother instantly recognized. DNA testing confirmed what everyone already knew. Mary Ellen had finally been found. The discovery made headlines, but the real shock came a few months later when a man named Greg Tully walked into the police station and asked to speak to a detective. Greg had grown up in the same town as Mary Ellen. He'd been a few years older, a quiet kid who kept to himself. He told the detective that he'd been carrying a secret for more than 2 decades, a secret that had eaten away at him every day since that night. Greg confessed that he'd been driving home from a party when he saw Mary Ellen's car pulled over on the side of the road. She was standing outside, looking upset. He stopped to see if she needed help. She asked for a ride, and he agreed. But something went wrong. They argued, and in a moment of panic, he pushed her. She fell, hit her head on a rock, and didn't get up. Greg said he panicked, dragged her body into the woods, and buried her in a shallow grave. He kept her shoe as a reminder, a twisted token of guilt. Greg was arrested and charged with manslaughter. At his trial, he wept as he described the years of nightmares, the guilt that never let him go, and the relief he felt when Mary Ellen was finally found. Her family, devastated but grateful for answers, finally laid her to rest. The case that had haunted a town for decades was solved, not by a detective, but by a boy on a hike and a man who couldn't outrun his conscience. That's just the beginning. The next case takes us to a sun-bleached highway in Texas, where a simple car breakdown led to the unraveling of a mystery that had stumped investigators for years. But before we get there, let's pause and think about what these stories really mean. They're not just about crime, they're about chance, about the way life can change in an instant, and about the power of ordinary people to uncover extraordinary truths.
Case 2. The Highway Ghost. It was the kind of Texas summer that makes the air shimmer above the asphalt, the kind where the sun feels like it's pressing down on you, and the only relief is the promise of dusk. On a lonely stretch of Highway 281, a young woman named Carla was driving home from her night shift at a diner. Her car, a battered old sedan with more miles than memories, sputtered and died just past mile marker 47. She pulled over, cursing under her breath, and tried to call for help, but her phone was dead. With no other options, she started walking, hoping to flag down a passing car. A few miles up the road, she spotted a flicker of headlights. She waved her arms, and the car slowed, then stopped. The driver, an older man named Frank, rolled down his window and asked if she needed a ride. Carla hesitated. Every warning her mother ever gave her about strangers echoed in her mind. But the night was dark, and the road was empty. She got in. As they drove, Frank tried to make small talk, but Carla was distracted. She kept glancing out the window, watching the moonlit fields slide by. Then, out of nowhere, Frank slammed on the brakes. "Did you see that?" he asked, voice tight. Carla looked ahead and saw nothing but empty road. "There was someone standing there," Frank insisted. "A woman, right in the middle of the highway." They got out, hearts pounding, and searched the roadside with a flashlight. That's when Carla saw it, a glint of something metallic in the grass. She knelt down and brushed away the weeds, revealing a rusted locket. Inside was a faded photograph of a young woman smiling, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Carla felt a chill run down her spine. The sheriff called. The sheriff called, who arrived with a deputy and began searching the area. Less than 20 yards from the road, they found a shallow depression in the earth. The soil was loose, as if it had been disturbed recently. The deputy started digging, and within minutes, they uncovered human remains. The sheriff radioed for backup, and by sunrise, the scene was swarming with investigators. The remains were sent to the state lab, where forensic analysts worked to identify the victim. The locket provided the first clue. The photograph matched a missing persons report from 1998, a woman named Teresa Alvarez, who had vanished on her way to visit her sister in San Antonio. For 16 years, her family had searched, posted flyers, and pleaded for answers. Now, thanks to a broken-down car and a chance encounter, they finally had closure. But the story didn't end there. As investigators combed the area, they found tire tracks leading away from the scene. The pattern matched a make and model of truck registered to a man named Roy Benson, who had lived in the area at the time of Teresa's disappearance. When questioned, Roy denied any involvement, But a search of his property turned up more evidence. A set of keys with Teresa's initials, a scarf she'd been wearing the night she vanished, and most damning of all, a journal where Roy had written about the girl on the highway.
Faced with the evidence, Roy confessed. He'd offered Teresa a ride when her car broke down, but when she refused his advances, he snapped. He killed her, buried her by the road, and tried to forget. For years, he drove past that spot, haunted by what he'd done. It took a random breakdown, a stranger's kindness, and a ghostly vision on a moonlit highway to bring the truth to light. The case made headlines across Texas. People called it the Highway Ghost Case. And for weeks, drivers reported seeing a woman standing by the side of the road waving for help. Whether it was real or just the power of suggestion, no one could say. But for Teresa's family, the nightmare was finally over. It's easy to think of cold cases as puzzles waiting to be solved, but the truth is messier. Sometimes the answers come not from logic or deduction, but from luck, coincidence, or even a moment of fear. The next story is a perfect example, a case that was solved not by a detective, but by a group of teenagers looking for a place to party. Case 3, the Forgotten Locker. In the summer of 2007, a group of high school seniors in Detroit were searching for a place to celebrate graduation. They settled on an abandoned factory on the edge of town, a crumbling relic of the city's industrial past, filled with broken windows, graffiti, and the ghosts of better days. They brought beer, a Bluetooth speaker, and enough bravado to ignore the warnings about trespassing. As the night wore on, one of the teens, Marcus, wandered off in search of a bathroom. He stumbled into a dark hallway lined with rusted lockers, most of them hanging open, their contents long since looted or rotted away. But one locker was different. It was locked tight, the metal door dented but unbroken. Marcus, emboldened by a few drinks, decided to break it open. He found a crowbar in a nearby storage room and pried the door loose. Inside, he found a backpack, a pair of shoes, and a stack of old newspapers. At first, it seemed like nothing, but when he unzipped the backpack, he found a wallet with a driver's license belonging to a man named David Harris. The name rang a bell. David had gone missing in 1995, last seen leaving a bar downtown. His disappearance had been a local mystery, the subject of rumors and speculation for years. Marcus called the police, who arrived and searched the area. Behind the locker, hidden in a crawl space, they found human remains. Dental records confirmed it was David Harris. The investigation revealed that David had been killed in a robbery gone wrong, his body hidden by someone who worked at the factory. The killer had died years earlier, taking the secret to his grave. But thanks to a group of teenagers and a forgotten locker, David's family finally had answers. The discovery of David Harris's remains sent shockwaves through the Detroit community. For years, his family had lived in a state of suspended grief, never knowing what happened to their son and brother. Now, with the truth finally unearthed, they could begin to heal. The story of the Forgotten Locker became a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the most ordinary places can hold extraordinary secrets. It also became a legend among local teens who whispered about the night the past came roaring back to life. But what makes this case truly haunting isn't just the randomness of the discovery. It's the way it highlights the thin line between the present and the past. That abandoned factory had stood for years, its secrets hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to stumble across them. It's a theme that runs through so many cold cases. The idea that the answers are out there just waiting for the right moment, the right person, or the right accident to bring them to light. Let's move to Case 4, a story that begins not with a crime, but with a renovation. Sometimes the past doesn't just linger, it literally comes crashing through the walls. Case 4, the house with a secret. In 2011, a young couple named Jamie and Alex bought their first home in a quiet suburb outside Chicago. The house was a fixer-upper, the kind of place that needed more love than money, with creaky floors, peeling wallpaper, and a basement that smelled like old books in rain. They spent their weekends tearing up carpet, painting walls, and dreaming about the life they'd build together. One Saturday, while knocking down a wall to expand the kitchen, Alex's sledgehammer hit something solid. At first, he thought it was just a stubborn stud or a pipe, but as he chipped away the plaster, he uncovered a small metal box embedded in the wall. The box was rusted shut, but with a little effort, they pried it open. Inside, they found a stack of letters, a faded photograph, and a set of keys. The letters were addressed to Maggie and dated back to the late 1970s. They were love letters, written in a shaky hand, filled with longing and regret. But as Jamie read through them, she noticed something strange. The writer, a man named Charles, kept mentioning a secret he couldn't live with, a secret that was buried in the house. The last letter ended abruptly with a chilling line. "By the time you read this, it will all be over." Jamie and Alex were unsettled, but curiosity got the better of them. They called the police, who brought in a team to search the property. In the crawlspace beneath the house, they found human remains wrapped in an old blanket. The medical examiner determined the body belonged to a woman in her late 20s, and dental records identified her as Margaret, or Maggie, Collins, who had gone missing in 1979. The investigation revealed that Charles, the letter writer, had been Maggie's boyfriend. He'd reported her missing, claiming she'd left him after an argument, but the letters told a different story. A story of guilt, fear, and a desperate attempt to hide the truth. Charles had died in 1982, never facing justice for what he'd done. But thanks to a sledgehammer, a renovation, and a box of letters, Maggie's story finally came to light.
The case captivated the community. Neighbors who'd lived on the street for decades remembered Maggie as a kind, quiet woman who loved to garden and bake cookies for the kids. Her disappearance had been a mystery that cast a shadow over the neighborhood for years. Now, with the truth revealed, her family could finally say goodbye. What's striking about this case is how the past can be literally built into the walls around us. We think of our homes as safe, familiar places, but sometimes they hold secrets we can't even imagine. It's a reminder that history isn't just something we read about, it's something we live with every day in ways we might never expect. As we move to our final case, I want you to think about the role of chance in all these stories. A hiker in the woods, a broken down car, a group of teenagers, a home renovation. None of these people set out to solve a mystery. They were just living their lives, making ordinary choices when fate intervened. It's a humbling thought and a little bit terrifying. Case 5, the photograph in the attic. In 2018, an amateur genealogist named Rachel was helping her grandmother clean out the attic of their family home in upstate New York. The attic was a treasure trove of old trunks, dusty books, and forgotten memories. Rachel was sorting through a box of photographs when she found a Polaroid that didn't seem to belong. It showed a young woman, bruised and frightened, holding up a newspaper from 1983. The date was clear, and so was the fear in her eyes. Rachel's grandmother didn't recognize the woman, but Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that the photo was important. She posted it online, hoping someone might have answers. Within days, the post went viral. People began comparing the photo to missing persons reports from the 1980s, and one name kept coming up: Lisa Monroe, a college student who had vanished in 1983 after leaving a party. The police reopened the case, using the photograph as a starting point. They traced the newspaper to a small town 2 hours away, and with the help of local records, identified the house where the photo had likely been taken. The owners allowed investigators to search the property, and in the basement, they found evidence of a makeshift cell, scratches on the walls, a broken chain, and most chillingly, a lock of hair that matched Lisa's DNA. The investigation led to a man named Harold Green, who'd lived in the house at the time. He died in 1995, but neighbors remembered him as a reclusive odd man who rarely spoke to anyone. Police believe he abducted Lisa, held her captive for months, and ultimately killed her. Lisa's remains were found buried in the woods behind the house, bringing an end to a mystery that had haunted her family for 35 years.
The discovery of Lisa Monroe's fate sent ripples through her family, her old college friends, and the entire community that had once searched for her. For decades, her parents had clung to hope, never moving away from the house where she'd grown up, just in case she ever found her way home. Now, with the truth finally revealed, they could mourn her properly, and the community could finally let go of the ghost that had haunted them for so long. What's so striking about Lisa's case, and all the cases we've explored tonight, is how the answers were always there, just waiting to be found. A photograph in an attic, a shoe in the woods, a locket by the highway, a backpack in a forgotten locker, a box of letters in a wall. These weren't the results of high-tech investigations or brilliant detective work. They were the products of chance, of ordinary people stumbling across the extraordinary. It's a reminder that sometimes the universe has its own way of revealing the truth, no matter how much time has passed. But let's take a step back and look at what these stories really mean. For the families, the answers brought both relief and pain. Closure is a complicated thing. It doesn't erase the years of not knowing, the birthdays missed, the empty chairs at the dinner table, but it does allow for a kind of peace, a way to move forward even if the wounds never fully heal. For the communities, these cases became legends, whispered about in school hallways, retold at family gatherings, and passed down through generations. They became cautionary tales, reminders to lock your doors, to trust your instincts, to look out for one another. But they also became stories of hope, proof that even the coldest case can be solved, that even the darkest mystery can be brought into the light. And for the rest of us, these stories tap into something deeper. They remind us of the randomness of life, the way fate can turn on a dime. They make us wonder about the secrets hidden in our own neighborhoods, the mysteries that might be waiting just around the corner. They make us think about the power of ordinary people to change the course of a story just by being in the right place at the right time. Let's revisit each case, not just for the facts, but for the human moments that made them unforgettable. Mary Ellen Decker's case wasn't just about a missing girl, it was about a mother's refusal to give up, a boy's curiosity, and a man's lifelong burden of guilt. The moment her mother recognized that necklace, the years of pain and uncertainty came crashing down. The confession that followed was raw, messy, and deeply human. It wasn't the ending anyone wanted, but it was an ending, and sometimes that's all you can hope for. The highway ghost case was more than a crime solved. It was a story of fear, kindness, and the strange ways the past can reach out to us. Carla's decision to trust a stranger, Frank's insistence that he saw something on the road, the locket glinting in the grass, all of it added up to a moment that changed everything. Teresa Alvarez's family finally got the answers they deserved, and the legend of the woman on the highway became a symbol of hope for other families still searching for their loved ones. David Harris's story, hidden in a forgotten locker, was a reminder of how easily people can disappear and how easily their stories can be lost. But it was also a testament to the power of curiosity, of young people willing to look where others wouldn't. The teens who found David's belongings didn't set out to solve a mystery, they just wanted a place to celebrate. But their discovery brought closure to a family, and justice, if not delayed, to a man who had been forgotten by the world. The House with a Secret was a story about love, regret, and the way the past can be literally built into the walls around us. Jamie and Alex's renovation project turned into a journey through time, uncovering a tragedy that had been hidden for decades. The letters, the photograph, the remains in the crawl space, all of it painted a picture of a life interrupted, a secret kept, and a truth that refused to stay buried. And finally, Lisa Monroe's case, solved by a photograph in an attic, was a story about memory, persistence, and the power of community. Rachel's decision to post the photo online set off a chain reaction that brought together strangers, police, and old friends, all working toward the same goal, to bring Lisa home. The discovery of her remains was heartbreaking, but it was also a testament to the idea that no one is ever truly forgotten. As we reach the end of these stories, it's worth asking, what do we take away from them? Is it the randomness of fate, the persistence of memory, or the resilience of the human spirit? Maybe it's all of those things. Maybe it's the reminder that no matter how much time passes, the truth has a way of coming out. And maybe, just maybe, it's the hope that if we ever find ourselves in the middle of a mystery, we'll have the courage to look a little closer, to ask the hard questions, and to never give up. But before we close, let's take a moment to honor the people at the heart of these stories. The families who never stopped searching, the friends who kept the memories alive, the strangers who stumbled across the clues, and the victims whose lives were cut short. Their stories matter not just because they were solved, but because they remind us of what's at stake. Behind every cold case is a person, a family, a community forever changed.
Thank you for spending this time with me. for listening, and for caring about the stories that too often go unheard. If you found this video meaningful, please share it with someone who needs a little hope or who loves a good mystery. And if you have your own story, something you found, something you've wondered about, or a case you think deserves more attention, don't hesitate to reach out in the comments. You never know who might be watching or what difference your words could make. Until next time, keep your eyes open, your heart curious, and your mind sharp, because the next great discovery might be yours. And together, we can help bring light to the darkest corners, one story at a time. Thank you, and good night.